Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the December DAC Webcast. I am Shara Savage, Director of Assessment and Accountability Support in the Office of Assessment and Accountability. Thank you for joining us during what is always a very busy time of year as schools across the Commonwealth prepared for winter break and all the hustle and bustle that comes with it. I truly hope each of you will be able to step away from the office for a bit of time and rest, and also a time to recharge. This month is also a special milestone for the DAC Webcast. December marks 10 years since Dr. Jennifer Stafford began this series in 2015. Her vision was to create an additional layer of support and communication for districts, ensuring that DACs had timely information, resources, and guidance throughout the assessment and accountability process. Over the past decade, these webcasts have continued to evolve, but the purpose remains the same: to support you for support the critical work you do for Kentucky students. As we look ahead, the Office of Assessment and Accountability is committed not only to maintaining this level of support, but also to explore new and meaningful ways we can strengthen the assistance we provide to districts. Your feedback and collaboration and partnership continue to shape this work, and we are grateful for everything you do. With that, let's take a quick look at today's agenda. As we get started this morning, like I said, we're going to take a quick look at the agenda. We'll begin with the Kentucky Alternate Assessment Updates, which Krista Mullins will bring to you. She'll walk us through some key reminders and information as we move through the assessment window. Next, Kristen Roseberry will provide several important SAT updates and reminders to support districts as they prepare for the upcoming SAT. Following that, Chris Williams will share the latest WIDA Access Assessment updates. She'll highlight essential tasks, timelines, and resources to help ensure a smooth testing windows for our English learners. And then finally, I will wrap up today's webcast by reviewing some upcoming events as we move into the new year. So we'll go ahead and get started with Krista and the Kentucky Alternate Assessment Updates. Krista?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Krista Mullins, a program consultant here in the Office of Assessment and Accountability, and I work mainly with the alternate assessment. So we're going to talk a little bit about Window 1. So if you have any test administrators who still need to complete the attainment task or the AT qualification quiz, I know some districts have teachers that move into district, or they need to hire teachers to fill those positions, and so they need to get trained. You can email me at krista.mullins@education.ky.gov to request the quiz be opened. I do want to remind you that when you email me, please ensure that these test administrators have completed the administration code training, inclusion of special populations training, and both of the overview and attainment task trainings. That needs to be completed prior to the test administrator completing the qualification quiz. Test administrators may receive those testing materials and begin administering the assessments once all those required trainings are completed and the qualification quiz has been successfully passed. DACs should receive those quiz certificates directly from the test administrators to confirm that they have completed that quiz. Continuing to look at the Window 1, if videos or animations are not appearing in the online training system or the OTS, a profile update is needed. So test administrators need to make sure their profile in the OTS reflects their current school and district and the grades that they teach. And that will allow those videos and animations to appear in the OTS. After test administrators update their profile, it is not an immediate update that takes place, the system needs to push an update, which usually takes about a few hours after the test administrator makes those updates to their profile. Once the system pushes that update, test administrators will be able to access those videos and animations. As a reminder, the deadline to administer the ATs and the field test tasks is next Friday, December 19th. And the deadline to enter the Window 1 scores is into the student registration database, or SRD, is the close of business on Monday, December 22nd. Looking ahead to January and our Window 1 makeups, students who need to complete Window 1 may complete the Window 1 ATs and field test tasks during the Window 1 makeup, which is January 9th through March 20th, 2026, or they can do that Window 1 during Window 2 in the spring. Makeups may only be administered after a formal request has been submitted to the Kentucky Department of Education, or KDE, and an approval email has been received by the district. So DACs requesting makeups for those students should complete the AKSA Window 1 makeup and TAR retake request form to request a makeup. And that was sent in the Monday DAC email this week, and also the special alternate email on Tuesday. Once you submit that request, please allow 1 to 2 business days for KDE to make a determination and to send an approval email. And then SRD will open for score entry 2 business days after that approval email is sent. I have already received some requests, and I just wanted to remind you that even if those requests have been submitted right now, SRD will not open until that makeup window opens in January. DACs can ensure that KDE has received the makeup request when a copy of the submission is received by email. So when you complete that form, it will send you a copy of your responses once you submit that form. Again, the deadline to complete all makeups is Friday, May 20th, 2026. And I did want to remind you that if students move into the district or they qualify for AKSA later in the year, they are required to complete Window 1 regardless of when they become eligible. Looking at our transition attainment record, or the TAR, if a teacher needs to complete that TAR qualification quiz, you can email me, krista.mullins@education.ky.gov. And as a reminder, the test administrator that need to complete that quiz, just like the attainment test, they need to complete all those required trainings before the quiz will be opened. For any students needing to retake the TAR, you'll submit a retake request using the AKSA Window 1 makeup and TAR retake request form that was sent out this week. And just as a reminder, a graduation code cannot be applied in Infinite Campus or IC for any students who are retaking the TAR. Students may retake any content on the TAR if they did not meet the benchmark in that specific content area. Let's take a look at the SRD, or Student Registration Database. So prior to entering scores in the SRD, the test administrator must select which field test form number was administered to the student. If a student has moved to a different district, please email me, and you can see my email here, to have the student transferred in SRD. When you send that email, you'll include the SSID number and the name of the new school. Just as a reminder, please do not email any student names. Also, if a student has moved into your district and they are not showing on SRD, you can email me and I can transfer them in SRD. Sometimes too, they might move in and you might need to add them into SRD, and the user manual is on the login page of SRD, and on page 6, it gives you details on how to add a student to SRD. For any students who have scores in SRD and have withdrawn to homeschool or have moved out of state, the student will not be deleted from SRD in the event that they re-enroll. A lot of times we have students that move to homeschool but then come back later in the school year, or they might move to another district and come back. And so with those scores being entered already, we really want to retain those scores in the system. And so we will offer an opportunity to delete those students from SRD in the spring using the SRD CRD deletion request form, which will be sent in a Monday DAC email in April. We do ask districts not to go in and delete any students from SRD. That is something that needs to be requested from KDE. We have had some questions about medical non-participations. Just as a reminder, those are submitted in the spring in the student data and review rosters, or SDRR, when spring rosters open. And those dates will be released in the SDRR February DAC training. So if you have that paperwork and you have everything that you are wanting to submit for that medical non-participation, we just request that you keep that in a secure location until the spring when that can be submitted. And in the spring, when that opens and you're able to submit those, we really encourage districts to submit them early in the event that that request is not approved. Because if it's not approved, the student will need to take both window 1 and window 2 during the second window of AKSA, which is April 14th through May 22nd, 2026. Looking at our testing materials, the deadline to return all testing materials to the DAC is Friday, December 19th. And if they do have those student response sheets and they need those to enter scores until Monday, December 22nd, it would be fine at that time to return those to the DAC once those scores are entered. The DAC binders should be stored in a secure double lock location until after window 2 in the event of a makeup for that window 1. And if your district did not order DAC binders, then the DACs will need to retain 1 elementary binder, 1 middle school, and 1 high school binder for makeups, and ensure that those are stored in a double locked location. Once DACs receive those student score sheets, those should also be kept in a double locked location until after data review, which will take place in August, just in case we need to go back and maybe something was entered incorrectly and it needs to be fixed. The elementary math counters that are included in your materials need to be saved for window 2. So please make sure when you're collecting all those materials that you do collect those and retain those. Any remaining testing materials, so if test administrators had to make copies to enlarge the print, or had to make copies to be able to cut pictures apart for student responses, all those materials need to make sure that they are securely destroyed at the close of window 1. And as you collect those school level binders, make sure you empty the contents and securely destroy the materials inside those binders if you are not retaining them for window 2 for any makeups. So at that time, that closes out my section. I did want to see if we had any questions come in to DAC info. So Devin, did we have any questions?
No, there are no questions at this time.
All right, thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season and are staying warm. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague, Kristen Roseberry.
Thanks, Krista. Good morning, everyone. I have just a few reminders for you about the upcoming SAT state administration. First, I want to say thank you to all of you that attended our in-person trainings throughout the month of November. Those were really well attended and they went well. And so it was really great to see you all out there. And so thank you for being with us. And so for reminders today, as a reminder, you need to request College Board approved accommodations for students before January the 12th. We strongly encourage you to get those completed prior to leaving for winter break, if at all possible, in the event that any additional documentation is needed for your students. There will be an opportunity to request accommodations for new students or those students that transfer in, but for your students that you already know that will be with you in the spring, please try to get those in before January the 12th. The training slide deck and a link to the recorded training for the SSD online webinar that can help you with submitting for those accommodations that was held on November the 12th are posted on the Kentucky College Board webpage in the training section. And then finally, College Board will host a technical readiness webinar on January 15th from 10 a.m. to 11:15 a.m. Eastern. And so DACs are encouraged to register for this training as well as share that link with technology staff so they can register also. And so that's all I have for you today, but I want to check. Devin, do we have any questions about SAT that's come in?
No, we don't have any about SAT at this time.
Thank you. And now I will turn it over to my colleague, Chris. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate that. Hi, I'm Chris Williams, and today I'm going to bring you lots of reminders and things to help prepare you for our WIDA Access assessments. So let's begin. Now, we have several things that are new this year for our WIDA Access assessments. Of course, one of the main things that you've probably already seen is we started last year with the alternate access, and that name changed to WIDA Alternate Access. And so now with new assessments coming up for access online and paper and kindergarten, then we also have name changes for those as well. So that now we have the WIDA Access for kindergarten and also the WIDA Access for online and both paper. WIDA made some changes to our grades 1 through 12 and with that experience. So with that, you had standard number 1, with our English language development standards. With that, it focused on social instructional language. So that is now incorporated throughout the tests. It was previously, standard 1 was only an initial task when you were given the assessment for students. And so now also that will be, was only an initial task or on task targeting our low proficiency levels. So you'll be seeing that incorporated throughout the assessment this year. Another thing is they increased the number of possible points for proficiency level 1 on the tier A speaking task by targeting the end of proficiency level 1. And this gives our students, our English learners, lots of opportunities to be able to show what they know and can do on our assessments. Then another thing is they speaking and writing scoring rubrics will replace the existing scale scores for access. Access will use the new speaking scoring rubric and with a WIDA screener, and Braille will continue to use the speaking scoring scale. We do have those for both new rubrics for both speaking and writing. And then we also had to have a new training course too for our test administrators in the WIDA Secure portal. So you've probably already looking at a lot of these changes throughout that course. Another thing is with the WIDA Access paper assessment, instead of, an option this year that's going to be new is that instead of using the CD, so if you want to, you can go in and use in WIDA AMS will be a new streaming audio feature for our grades 1 through 12. Now, keep in mind, this is optional. It is not mandatory. You can still use the CDs that come with the paper materials. And this only affects your WIDA Access paper when you're taking that. And so that's very few students that we have that take the WIDA Access paper. Another thing is that what's new with our WIDA Kindergarten Access, because, we had a lot of changes with that as well. They redesigned the Kindergarten Access. They also incorporated new content that reflects what a lot of our educators wanted for the new kindergarten assessment. They also have, there's going to be fewer test materials that you will have to manage. No more of those, the big activity boards. You will also have fewer cards to keep up with when you're administering this. This time, all of the 4 domains will be connected to a single storyline. You also have new tasks that will reflect, everyday classroom practices that you're already doing with your students. And each language domain is administered once with no starting or skipping rules. And if you've been administering those, they used to have those stop and start and where to begin. Depending on where the student had did in other domains of the assessment. So those no longer are those. So it's like I said, there's lots of things that have changed. Also, there's a separate score sheet to mark student scores for listening, speaking, reading, and writing for our kindergarten students. Also, they revised scoring protocols and rubrics for speaking and writing tasks for our kindergarten assessment. And another thing that they also incorporated this year is the low vision script accommodation is just for our WIDA kindergarten access only. Now, it gives our TAs additional scripting with the specialized graphic and picture descriptions to support students with low vision. It can be used in combinations with the large print materials as well, or with just your standard size test materials, with or without additional magnification for students. Now, also, you're probably saying, well, how can I get these low vision scripts? Well, to order those, the DAC will want to contact DRC customer service during the additional materials ordering that's already open. It is the same process that the DACs use to order human readers accommodation scripts if needed for their students who have an IEP or a 504. So keep that in mind, that is available to you if you need that for your students. And then with the score reports, because of these changes, you know, with the alternate access, there was a slight delay in reports and things like that with the standard setting process. Well, with the changes now with access online and etc., we will still get our access school reports on time for Kentucky. You'll see that you'll receive the reports on April the 27th. In WIDA MS for online, for you to go online and see all your reports that way. And then also your reports will be shipped to you, paper copies, starting May 7th. And some of you, depending on where you are in the state, may get them on May 8th. So just keep in mind, just because WIDA is holding that standard setting process in July 2026, that will be toward the end of July, to ensure that student scores will give an accurate picture of students' English language development. Because we always want to make sure that whenever we're doing our assessments, that you know, when we introduce new content on our assessments or change our assessments and add new items and etc., that we have to do a standard setting process to ensure that everything is you know, great and accurate with our scores. And then we also set new cuts too during that process. And then we'll also have with that particular process, we'll also have to set we'll have to look at our revisit our exit criteria for this as well. So just want to kind of give you a heads up on things that are happening this year. We've also sent out lots of things throughout the Monday DAC email. So if you want to go back through some of those as well, there are lots of things to kind of help you this year with your English learners. So keep in mind to always be checking those Monday DAC emails or those special DAC emails, because they have valuable information for you as a not only as a DAC, but for your test administrators, also for your EL coordinators, your special ed directors, etc. in the district. Also, we also like to talk about what happens before testing with our assessments. So with any of our assessments, we always have to have administration code and inclusion of special populations training that has to be given to any of our prior to any of our state required assessments. So make sure that your test administrators who are going to be administering the test, anyone who's going to be working with the test, have had that administration code and inclusion. Another thing is that is specific to WIDA is in the WIDA Secure portal, you have training course and quiz that you have to always make sure annually to do in the WIDA Secure portal. Make sure that you've given a copy of that to your district assessment coordinator. Another thing is whenever you're logging in to the WIDA Secure portal for the first time each year, you always have to sign a non-disclosure user agreement, and that also has to be on file. And that's not only for anyone who's going to be working with the assessment, but especially our test administrators and also our technology coordinators. You also want to make sure that they have signed that non-disclosure agreement as well. Even though a lot of their things are in WIDA MS, they can also have that printed out for them and signed as well because they are working with our assessments as well. Another thing is that we also have webinars too. You can get access in the WIDA Secure portal to not only to your assessment trainings, go through the course and take the quizzes, but also to get to resources too. There's always, if you need extra materials and things like that, there's the additional materials order, but then there's also things underneath the WIDA Secure portal underneath resources to also help you with that as well. There's also, we'll talk about some of those things in just a few minutes. And then another important part of the WIDA Secure portal is the webinars. And there are webinars that WIDA does throughout the year to kind of help you prepare as well. And then there's also trainings that I do as well to help you prepare and have to help you prepare for the assessments as well. So there's lots of resources for you, and you'll see some of those toward the end of the presentation. Another thing is to remind you is if you've got students who have an IEP or 504, remember they can have accommodations on the on any of our WIDA Access assessments. And there's also a manual too that will help you, whether you're testing online, whether you're testing paper, etc. is the WIDA Accessibility and Accommodations Manual. Make sure if you're providing any of those accommodations to your students that you have not only gone through this manual, but you've also, checked IC, to see what accommodations that the student can get in their IEPs and 504 plans. Also to go into this accessibility and accommodations manual and see exactly what accommodations that the student gets on the access assessment, or if you're taking the WIDA alternate access. And then also with our kindergarten assessments. And there are forms in the back to kind of help you, for the test administrator. You want to fill those forms out if you're administering any accommodations to access online, access paper, the alternate access, or to the kindergarten. And each form is specific to the assessment. It also tells you what accommodations can be used in those particular domains, and then what accommodations the student has. So you want to check with the IEP, and then you also want to check in the accommodations manual to see what accommodations can be assessed for your students who have an IEP or 504. And it's always important to go through this particular process and have a process of how you ensure that accommodations, you want to have a process beforehand of how you're looking at these accommodations, but you also want to have a process, during, so that way the test administrator knows exactly what accommodations they can give. And, not every student would need those accommodations. It is individualized for that particular student. Also, there is the test setup in WIDA AMS. That started November the 26th and goes through February 13th throughout the window. And so your students are already, if you ordered materials back in October, after that ordering window was over with, the last day of that was toward the end of October on the 22nd. And so after that, we sent our data guys got together and sent a file to DRC from Infinite Campus of our English learners to pre-populate those sessions, those students into sessions. And it's very important that you always look over those, make sure your students are in those, that they are set up right in those test registrations in WADA MS, because like I said, they're pre-populated for you. There's nothing else that you have to do for your students if they're already in there. Now, we do have students who move in, after that particular time has elapsed. And so you have to manually go in and add those students. And if you're going in manually add those students, remember for grades 1 through 3, you're only putting them into registrations for listening, reading, and speaking, because writing is done in a booklet, a test booklet that you would have to order. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Some of the things that happen with our grades 1 through 3. Another thing is for our grades 1 through, if they're not in grades 1 through 3, for grades 4 through 12, you'd want to make sure that they're in all 4 registrations of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And with this, before testing, you always want to make sure that any time through the year you are running that EL extract report because in Infinite Campus. That's always going to be important, not only before we get to the ordering window, because that way it'll tell you if you've got any errors on your EL tabs that you have in Infinite Campus, but for your English learners, but also it will tell you, who is on that list, that are pulling for ELs. And if you see that some of this, you're like, well, I've got other students and why are they not pulling? Because there may be other errors, or one, you haven't entered them into Infinite Campus. So you always want to double check all of those throughout the year, but it's also important again, because we're getting ready to open up the test window. And you want to make sure that when you get new students in, that those students are also in Infinite Campus as well as into our systems to be able to take the assessments. Another thing is that since this WIDA AMS opened for registrations, also you got your test materials as well. And so those were already delivered to you. And so you want to inventory all of your test materials to make sure that you have those. And not only as a DAC, as a district assessment coordinator, you inventory those, but when you're giving those to the schools, you want to make sure you as a BAC are also inventorying those materials that you get from the DAC and recording any discrepancies that you have in the accountability form in WIDA AMS. And if you need to order any additional materials, for any new students, or if you forgot to order back in the initial order, we do have that window that is open. It opened December 2nd and will stay open through February 6th. You do have to have permissions. So as a DAC, a district assessment coordinator who's going to be ordering the materials for your district, you have to have permissions granted in that. So just let me know when you're ready to do an additional order. Send me an email and I'll be more than glad to go in and grant those permissions for you. And then once those permissions are granted, you're free to go in and order materials in WIDA AMS. Some things I do want to say about before you order materials is always check your inventory, because you get an overage of materials as a DAC at the district level, and then you also get overage of materials for at the schools as well. So always be looking through your overage and use that first before ordering any additional materials in WIDA AMS. Now, for technology coordinators, you also want to make sure that you're completing not only the non-disclosure agreement, but also you have a checklist that you have to keep up with, and how you're setting up those devices and making sure they're ready and got the latest software on the Chromebooks, etc., on whatever device that you're using to provide the assessment for the students. Mostly it's Chromebooks. So you also want to make sure that you've got the latest software updated. Also, there are webinars too that you will get that you can go through as a technology coordinator to get. Those are recorded, and also you can go to the live events. And as a technology coordinator, you can go into WEDA AMS, go to that particular when you go in. Go to into documents, and when you go up to the top under my applications to documents, you'll get make sure to have it all of the things labeled as all, and that way it'll bring up everything that you're going to need as a technology coordinator, and it'll also have your checklist there. It'll also have a form in there too that'll have all your webinars and the event links and how to get to those live sessions. And if you're not able to see those are also recorded for you to go back in view as well. Also, you want to make sure that you have a testing schedule. Make sure that it is print or electronic. Make sure that everyone has those, and that it's going to be testing this year. Any changes that you make to those, make sure that everyone has the latest updates for those. That's another important piece when it comes to our accommodations, because sometimes we know that the accommodations that you do have those IEP meetings or 504 meetings during the assessments, because that's when their annual assessment comes up. Just make sure that you go with the current particular accommodations with that student. If those accommodations change, make sure that test administrator knows that as well. And that test schedule, always make sure you have a test schedule. So that way everybody's aware of it. Also, you want to let parents know when you're going to be testing students as well. So that way they can plan accordingly and know that the testing window is open, because we do have a 6-week window, which is a long window. Another thing is that we want to always maintain test security, not only with our test tickets, that we have to use for when we're testing our students online for grades 1 through 12, but we also have, our test booklets for our paper assessments, not only for our WEDA alternate, but also for our kindergarten assessments. And we have test booklets. We have also the student response booklets that you also want to make sure that you're keeping secure, and that you always have a check-in and check-out process for these materials each day during the window. And you also want to make sure that you're maintaining that test security throughout. Before, and some people say, Chris, when can we print those test tickets? The earliest that you want to print those test tickets is the day before, because there's a lot of test tickets that you'll want to print out. But remember, you have to maintain test security, keep those double locked secure at all times. And just like, Krista was telling us about, our alternate assessment materials, the same process happens, when we get to not only that alternate KSA, but also with our WEDA Access, our WEDA Kindergarten, our WEDA paper materials, and our WEDA alternate access materials. And then the trainings you have to have is the administration code. You also have to have the inclusion of special populations training and also go through the access trainings in the WIDA secure portal. Make sure your DACs have a copy of the administration code and inclusion of special populations, your non-disclosure forms, also your access trainings, your quizzes that you take. Make sure they have a copy of those currently for this school year. Our training started for screener started July 1 of this year, and then our access training started in September for access training. So make sure that you've got those particular done and prior to administering any of our assessments. Review. You also want to make sure that you're reviewing our Kentucky member page on the WIDA website. That's always important. It has our checklist. It also has our test schedule. It also has professional development and also our contact information and important. It also has links to our manuals and things like that also on our Kentucky page. So check that out if you haven't. I hope you've already checked it out. If you're new, you may not. So that's just, please go to the WIDA website and check out our member page for lots of details. Another thing is our practice test. You always want to make sure that you give the students opportunities to be able to test out the tools if they're testing online. Also to do a practice test and also review test security procedures with your students as well. That's always important. We always want to maintain, test security with our materials, but also test security with our items of our assessment as well. And so you also want to make sure that you're keeping everything double locked, that you're keeping, whether you're testing off-site or testing, in the buildings, that you're maintaining that test security with all those materials as well. And then also going over test security procedures with students. And it's always important when you're reviewing the, access trainings that I do. I have those broken down for you by modules. And so it talks about our, what to do in the WIDA Secure Portal, what to do in WIDA AMS, also test setup, how to set up registrations. Those instructions are in those trainings as well. And also, there's also one on test security that you want to go over as a DAC and also as a BAC, and then also as a test administrator, and then also with your students. Now, I know that's a lot to keep up with, but we do want to just kind of remind you of those type of rules because they happen with all of our assessments. And then during testing, what are we supposed to be doing? Our test window will start January 5th. As soon as you get back from Christmas break, the window will be open. Some districts will also take time, even though the window is open, to kind of acclimate your English learners back into the, back into school, back into the routines. And that's always important to do. But keep in mind, you also want to make sure that, we do have weather that occurs during this time, and to, we do have a long window to test our students because that window will end on February 13th. There is one thing I do want to say is there's no opt-out of testing for any of our state required assessments. That includes our WIDA access assessments for our English learners. There is, we do, if the students are in person every day, they are to be tested. There's no remote testing. So if you've got students who are who are doing, virtually, they have to come in and test in person. And so you want to make sure that they've scheduled to come in and test because that is also a requirement as well with any of our assessments that whether you're in person each day or whether you're remote, whether you're not remote, but, on, doing your instruction online and not in the classrooms each day, that you do have to come in for assessments, and you do have to take all of the required assessments at that particular grade level. Also, we do have off-site testing, like I said, for our students who are in the homes or hospitals type situations. So those students are tested. Also, you want to keep our materials secure, not only our test tickets, but our test booklets, our student response booklets, our scratch paper. Scratch paper is important because if you're testing online, you would use the notepad that there is that you have with Access online. If you're testing paper pencil assessment, they would need actual paper, scratch paper to use, and they can use their test ticket or blank or blank graph paper to use for their scratch paper, and they can use it on any of the domains. And then always want to make sure that you're monitoring students because that's another one of that level of test security, is monitoring our students all throughout the assessment is important. Another thing is the tier level report for your grades 1 through 3. Once they take the reading and the listening test online, you will go into the tier level report in WIDA AMS, and it will tell you which booklet to pull for them, whether it be a tier A or a BC for that particular student. And then if you need additional materials for your students, make sure that you have tested them first before you order those additional writing booklets. That way you'll know exactly what you need if you don't have them in your district. Also, test setup is also, we've went over that. And then we also have running that EL extract report in Infinite Campus. And then another important thing is seating charts. Seating charts are required for all of our state required assessments, as well as with our WIDA Access assessments. You have both if you're testing individual assessments, especially a lot with our accommodated students, and then our one-to-one assessments that for kindergarten and alternate 2 that are one-to-one and not able to do group. There are certain domains of that you can group administer the assessments. Make sure that you're reading the manuals as well. And then we do have rosters too as well that you're doing that we have. In the rosters for WIDA Access, those will begin January 5th and go through March 9th for new tickets at 5 p.m. For any non-participations that you need to submit. And those rosters will be blank. And there's also a training, there's also a PowerPoint for you as well on the Kentucky Department of Education WIDA Access page. Also, site visits. We do conduct site visits. That is a thing that we do during testing for all of our state required assessments. And so we will be conducting, those are randomly selected. Sometimes they are, appointed, ones that we have to do. So just keep in mind that we will be doing site visits. Site visits are, are things we come out and we always like to see all the great things that you're doing, before testing, during testing, and after testing. And so we'll just conduct a little interview. We'll also like to come out and look at all the areas and things like that of where you're testing. And then also look at some other, we'll have a checklist too that we'll go through with you. And those resources are also toward the end of this presentation. Now, we do have WIDA Access online testing scripts that we do have that is provided, those translated scripts for students who, still have, they're brand new to the United States and still using their native language. Remember that they also have to have oral native language support in their PSP for you to be able to use those translated scripts on Access as well. And that these are just kind of the guidelines for you of using those translated. You are only going to be able to read the directions only. You also want to make sure that you remind students that all of their, answers have to be in English. And these translated scripts are not secure. At the completion of testing, you want to recycle those, and those do not have to be returned to DRC, which is Data Recognition Corporation. Here are all the resources that we have for our assessments, and you'll notice on the WIDA Secure portal, I have it linked here for you for all of the things that you're going to need for that, for WIDA AMS. Also, the WIDA Accessibility and Accommodations Manual. All the forms that you're going to need are also linked on this page with the site visits, with the medical non-participations, if you need to file those, the no opt-out of testing, the seating charts, etc. And then we also have the administration code and inclusion of special populations linked here, as well as the WIDA Access trainings that I do on the KDE website. And then our Kentucky's member page, where I was telling you about how important it is to look at the checklist and look at the testing schedule, etc. Now, I do have one more thing to discuss with you because, we also had our alternate access. We've already had a new assessment for that. We've had a standard setting with that. And with that standard setting process, we had to go in and look at our exit criteria, revisit our exit criteria for WIDA alternate access. Because WIDA created a new alternate access test with new items, we had to bring in, WIDA also had to bring in, member educators from across the consortium to do a standard setting. And then we also have to come in and bring in Kentucky educators to also look at when we're doing standard settings, and also to revisit our exit criteria. And we always use our Kentucky educators, in a lot of our work that we do. We also, when we look at standard setting, we also have to look at cut scores, and that describes where the performance for the student to meet expectations at each of the proficiency levels of a 1 to a 6 on Access, and also on WIDA alternate access as well. So with that, cut scores also help states determine the appropriate level a student must achieve on WIDA alternate access. And after those approved, then we also have to bring in Kentucky educators again to look at and set exit criteria for a WIDA alternate access. So we did that process late this fall. And so now I just want to let you know that our new exit criteria that our Kentucky educators set for WIDA alternate access is overall proficiency level of a 3. And so that concludes, I believe, all of the updates for WIDA Access and also the WIDA alternate access. Devin, are there any questions that you have for me?
No, there are no WIDA questions in DAC info.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And just remember, I'm always here for you whenever you need me. And I look forward to a successful WIDA access window starting January 5th. So, well wishes and happy holidays. I'm going to turn it over now to Shara. Shara?
Thank you, Chris. This morning, I'm going to share with you just a couple of upcoming events. As we wrap up today's webcast, I wanted to highlight a couple important events happening at the beginning of the year. First, the Kentucky United We Learn Council will convene again on Friday, January 23rd. Last December, if you remember, we shared the key dates for the upcoming statewide town halls for the Cool Council, the Kentucky United We Learn model framework. Since then, we have incorporated the feedback from those town halls, as well as input from educators, advisory groups, and the Kentucky Board of Education, and into Model Framework 4.0. Now, at this point, with Model 4.0, we are still in the advocacy phase and are hopeful that during the 26th legislative session that Model 4.0 will be considered. With the legislative session running from Monday, January 6th through Wednesday, April the 15th, OAA encourages you to stay informed and engaged throughout this period. As always, we will continue to monitor all education-related legislation and bring forward any bills that may impact Kentucky's assessment and accountability systems. Your awareness and understanding are essential, and we will make sure that you have the information you need. So, Devin, before we close out, do we have any questions for any of our presenters today?
No, we do not. DAC info's pretty quiet this morning.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to remind you that if you have any questions or comments following today's webcast, please don't hesitate to send us an email at dacinfo@education.ky.gov. Our next monthly DAC webcast will take place on January the 8th at 11 a.m. So I want to wish you, each of you, some happy holidays, and I hope you get to spend some good quality time with your family. And until we meet again, take good care and remember that OAA is here to support you. Thank you.